Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
Back to McMullen, Kevin Blackistone, Sarah Spain, Tank Kalishaw. Ooh. A gold medal for the U.S. in curling. Somebody called it the miracle on ice. Everybody called it the miracle on ice. But check this out. Does that gold medal get you an upgrade to first class in the 13-hour flight home? No!
Come on. Be creative, Delta. Come on now.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reali.
This Oregon team is not a big
Where's the money chance? 100,000 chance? Wiretap chance? Interestingly, none of it derailed DeAndre Ayton. He had 28-18. But Arizona's loss to Oregon this weekend overshadowed by Coach Sean Miller's absence and the volcanically hot magma he's swimming in. Caught on FBI wiretap, not a headline you typically can recover from. National panel. We're going to start with you, Jackie Mack. Can Sean Miller and Arizona and the NCAA recover from this?
Well, let's start with Sean Miller. I talked to a prominent college coach who told me these two words. He's, quote, toast. They have him, I guess we have to say allegedly, but an FBI wiretap, it sounds pretty solid to me. They have him on there talking about a $100,000 payment. That is a point of no return. Now, let me be clear on this. Sean Miller isn't the first or the last NCAA coach to have that conversation, nor is Andy Miller the first or the last agent to run an agency that had go-betweens to organize these kind of payoffs. The problem is he's the one that's on the wiretap, and Andy Miller's the one that's lost his certification over this.
Kevin Blackstone.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, for me, I would not have minded seeing Sean Miller on the sidelines. I mean, all the other coaches who are implicated in this, they coached over the weekends. All the players who are implicated in this, they coached over the weekends.
Okay.
All Sean Miller and Arizona.
But there's varying degrees of implication.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. But we have them all in the same basket in this particular instance. And all that Arizona and Sean Miller have become are the poster programs and the poster coaches and a poster player for this particular incident. That's all it is. Whether he was on the sidelines or not, what difference did it make?
Sarah Spain, you want to join in?
I think he's right that they end up becoming the scapegoats that hopefully the NCAA believes we'll take care of this, brush it along, and then we'll all get back to the way things have always been, which is everybody knows this is going on, and we're going to ignore it, and we're going to punish the people that get outed. Now, the answer to that is, yeah, that means that I think Sean Miller and Arizona are going to be hit very hard by this. The best possibility is that this is a pivot point because there are so many names and so many programs involved where the NCAA can't simply do that and revert back to the way things were. We actually have to change the system.
Tim Kalishaw.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing Sean Miller as a scapegoat here if all this stuff is true. And Blackistone was here in Dallas years ago when the Southwest Conference was at the height of its craziness and SMU was getting the death penalty. And through all that, with different schools, you never really heard about a head coach making the direct connection with the money. They'd stay away from that. That's assistants, that's boosters, that there's a lot of ways to get around that. In this case, it's Sean Miller on the phone talking about $100,000. That's the shocking part of the story to me. That and the fact that we learned over the weekend that if he gets fired with cause, he gets 85% of his money. What kind of cause is that? That we all need that kind of contract.
Some people are questioning the FBI's involvement in this. To that, you say what, Sarah Spain?
While I believe that these people are acting the way that you'd expect from a system that has incentivized them to do this, it's still illegal. It's still bribery and fraud and crossing state lines. And whether or not we all believe that players should be played and that this system is indentured servitude, they still know the rules, they know the laws, and they are breaking them. So I do not blame the FBI for being involved.
KB, same question to you.
Well, I mean, I just think it's a shame to have criminalized players, possibly coaches who are involved in this structure, this system that has been created. And Tim, you mentioned SMU, but you know what? That was 30 years ago, and who knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars ago, because this is now a billion-dollar industry, and that is the crux of the problem.
But still, you thought Miller would have been on the sidelines Saturday
Sure,
Arizona.
absolutely. I don't see why not.
It seems like it surprises the rest of the panel here. Any of you surprised Ayton played? Because Arizona cleared him very fast.
No.
And then we have the interesting cases with Duke and Wendell Carter, Michigan State with Miles Bridges, Kentucky with Kevin Knox, Alabama with Colin Sexton. All were ruled eligible almost immediately. But we're talking about varying degrees here, as we said earlier, of their involvement. How do you read it all, Jackie Mack?
Well, that's the thing. So far anyway, and again, we will see going forward. But Duke right now, the issue with Wendell Carter was a luncheon with Dawkins and whether or not Wendell Carter's mother may have paid her part of the bill. I would say that's quite a bit different than a wiretap of a coach talking about an $100,000 payment. Now, we may find out more later. But here's the thing, Tony. The reason those guys are on the court is very simple. March Madness is what? 3 weeks away?
3 weeks away, yeah.
3 weeks away. That is the big cash cow for the NCAA. It's their biggest event of the year. Do you think they're going to blow up the March Madness over this?
So you would agree that the NCAA wants players to play. And, Tim, would you agree that schools are approaching this like, well, the doomsday clock's at 1 minute to midnight. Might as well trot out the team.
Absolutely. This is an FBI investigation. They know an NCAA penalty would be years down the road. Why not win the tournament now or get to a Final Four? What's the worst that could happen? You got to vacate the wins, and nobody cares about that.
That was our discussion last week with Louisville. I had an entire panel saying, vacated the wins, it's not going to expunge my memory, so we'll move on. Let's talk Russ and Zaza.
Westbrook, the high dribble. Forced that one up. Bodies falling on the floor.
Obviously, it was intentional. Nobody touched me, fell over my leg, tried to hurt me.
The history between Russ and Zaza is real. What Saturday night may have been real and dirty, or did Warriors fans convince any of you maybe Nick Young's Secretary Bird kick to the back of Zaza's leg precipitated all? Sarah, start us off.
Well, you saw it, Tony, right? I mean, don't ask me dumb questions. You saw it. That's a dumb question, Tony.
Thank you, Russ
You saw the play.
Yes.
Don't ask it. No, I think that you can believe that Zaza Pachulia is equal parts clumsy and dirty, which is how I feel. I think, yes, there is a great possibility that leg to the back of his knee and tripping on his foot caused him to fall. But I also believe that as he fell, he certainly didn't stop himself from splaying out and landing as hard as possible on his opponent. I think he's clumsy. I also think he's dirty, and I understand why Westbrook and other players around the league did not like that play.
Look, that was completely intentional, and why would we be surprised? Those two have history. You just showed the elbows to the head. And not only that, there's actually a rule in the NBA referred to as the Zaza rule coming after the step under the three-point shooter that he just did the other year. So this guy's got a history of doing these sorts of things in the league.
Okay. He's also taken out his own teammates before with his falls to the court. Jackie Mack, what'd you see Saturday?
Yeah, so at first glance, I looked at it and I thought, yep, there's Zaza again, flopping all over the place, falling all over everybody, falling all over himself. And I think there is a kernel of truth to that. But then you watch it again, and to Sarah's point, you look at it and you say, okay, yeah, so he's tangled up, he's falling, but he does fall with quite a bit of force. And, you know, I remember the play with Kawhi. I went back and forth on that. I really thought that it could have been an honest, clumsy mistake until I talked to Popovich about it afterwards. And then I'm like, okay, clearly there's a kernel of truth to the fact that this guy has involved in a bunch of dirty plays.
A lot of kernels in this show so far. How about you, Kalisha?
Yeah, clumsy and dirty are good words. Careless is another. And, yeah, he's done it to his teammates. But in this case, he just kind of crumples to the floor. He sees a place to land very softly and land on Russell's legs. I mean, it's still a dirty play. Russell's absolutely right. Zaza did this stuff in Dallas. He's done it in Golden State. I really don't know why he starts games, but that's Steve Kerr's business. He never finishes games.
He's not anymore.
He's just kind of an embarrassment.
He's not really anymore, right? Well, Steve Kerr's also
that.
called him the moral compass of the team before.
Well, whatever.
I'm not sure if that's related to anything to what he does actually on the court, but
yeah,
he's
a great guy off the court, right?
Ain't that peculiar? We'll move on. Jimmy Butler, knee surgery. He thinks he'll be back before the playoffs. Timberwolves haven't made the playoffs in 13 years. They're the 4 seed right now, which sounds great, but that's just 1 game up on the 9 seed in the loss column. So they're looking California, but feeling Minnesota. Tim, how much trouble are the T-Wolves in without Butler?
Well, they're in a lot if he doesn't get back to the playoffs, but I think they can, it depends on how far they fall in the last, 5 or 6 weeks without him. Right now they're in a position where they could, with him back, they could win a first round. Now they're going to run into Golden State or Houston in the second round. It's not going to last long, but right now Wiggins is the guy who has to step up, and heaven forbid he's got to step up at the defensive end because he hadn't done that yet in his career. His plus-minus shows that, but somebody's got to now.
So the question was how much trouble they're in, and you say, well, we'll see how they play without him. Of course. Thank you very much for that. Is this Kalisha attacking again or what?
Wiggins.
Sarah Spain, please answer the question.
No tag.
I think they're in trouble in terms of winning a first-round series. I think they're still in an okay position to eke into the playoffs. And for a team that hasn't been there in such a long time, I think that's an admirable goal. Now, yeah, you mentioned defensively they have a lot of issues, and that's surprising from a Tom Thibodeau team that they haven't been able to figure that out. But I think they have enough, and that bunch is packed tightly enough that if they pull together, they can get back, and he can get back in time to at least play in that first round, although I don't think they have a good shot at winning it.
You brought up Tom Thibodeau team, Sarah, and this is an injury to Jimmy Butler, who leads the league in minutes. So I'll ask you, because this is your jurisdiction. What do you think of that?
I wish I hadn't called it, but when he sat out the All-Star game, I said, translation, I need his time to rest because Thibodeau is riding me, right?